This morning, a Perth school in shock. Its principal sacked following child sex charges. Public school funding boost. The government signs off on an historic WA cash injection. A man charged over this shocking video, a machete pulled from a pram in Mandurah. And an Eagles great surprises Perth kids with AFL's highest prize.
This is 7 Morning News, live from Perth, with Tina Altieri.
Good morning, thanks for your company. A Perth school community is in shock this morning after its principal was charged with possessing child exploitation material. Here's Francesca Di Nuccio.
Paul Whitehead had been the principal at both Bold Park Community School campuses here in Wembley and in Maylands. The co-ed school has students from pre-kindy to year 12. Whitehead is facing 3 separate charges of possessing child exploitation material, unlawfully possessing a controlled or prescription drug and failing to obey an officer. His employment has now been terminated. 7 News has been told the former principal was on 6 months study leave when he was arrested. He was due back at the start of term 4. Acting Principal Felicity Kinsella had been in his place and will now continue in that role. In a statement, Bold Park Community Schools say the charges do not relate to the school and the whole community are shocked by this serious situation. They say the school remains focused on ensuring students receive a nurturing, safe and quality education experience. Paul Whitehead will reappear in Midland Court later this month.
WA's public schools are set for a major boost under what's been called an historic agreement between state and federal governments. Together, they'll chip in $1.6 billion to bring to reach an agreed full benchmark funding level. It means early phonics and numeracy checks starting in kindergarten and extra support like mental health programs to extend into senior years.
This is what Labor governments do. They make a difference to people's lives in a practical way, and there's no area that's more important than education.
What this deal means is that Western Australia will be the first state in the country to get public schools to that full funding level. This money will be tied to real, practical reforms to help our children who fall behind.
The deal also aims to improve teaching standards right across the state. A Mandurah man has been charged over a machete incident caught on camera a week ago. The man is accused of pushing a stroller and pulling a machete on a driver. Police launched a media appeal. Officers say a 32-year-old man attended Mandurah police station and was then arrested. He's been charged with being armed in a way that may cause fear. He's due to face court later this month. 2 people on board a stricken yacht have been saved from rough seas off Sydney's south coast. The Navy and police joined forces to pluck the pair to safety 150 kilometres from land.
Well, 2 sailors have an incredible story of survival, spending 20 hours stranded at sea after multiple rescue attempts were abandoned due to tough conditions. New pictures into the newsroom show just how poor those conditions were as a smaller rib vessel finally makes contact with the elite racing yacht called the Spirit of Mateship in rolling 2 to 3 metre seas. The alarm was first raised on Monday afternoon after a distress signal was picked up from on board the 19-metre vessel about 130 nautical miles southeast of Sydney. 2 people on board, a 60-year-old man and a 48-year-old woman, said the vessel had suffered a mechanical issue and was taking on water. 3 helicopters, Australian Navy vessel HMAS Canberra and police boat Nemesis were deployed but were forced to abandon the rescue overnight after facing 5-metre swells and wind gusts of up to 100 kilometres an hour. But as conditions eased throughout the morning, the pair were rescued just before 7:30 with no injuries reported. The vessel, the Spirit of Mateship, is a racing yacht and has raced in multiple Sydney to Hobart yacht races since its debut in 2013. The yacht is now being towed to Sydney, where it is expected to make land a little later tonight.
Australia's spy boss Mike Burgess claims people have distorted his remarks over what grounds ASIO would cancel a Palestinian's visa application. Here's political reporter Ben Downey.
Good morning. Mike Burgess doesn't name any individuals, but his comments are clearly aimed at the opposition, who used what he said to wage a week-long campaign against the government in question time. Now, 2 weeks ago, the ASIO Director General said mere rhetorical support for Hamas wouldn't automatically disqualify Palestinian refugees from entering Australia, prompting an opposition attack that the government was welcoming Hamas supporters to Australia. Mike Burgess now says he's watched with interest how people have chosen to distort what I said. I said that if you support a Palestinian homeland, that may not discount you. If you think Hamas and what they did on the 7th of October is okay, from an ASIO security assessment point of view, you will not pass muster.
What we now need to hear from is the Prime Minister. What is the Prime Minister's position now when it comes to people fleeing the Gaza war zone who are coming to Australia on tourist visas?
More than 300 Palestinians have now obtained Australian protection visas in 2 months. There remains at least 1,000 here, though, on visitor visas, but the government has said they won't be sent back to Gaza.
Thank you, Ben. Well, a teenager from Queensland is facing terror charges. It's understood the boy was trying to buy firearms online and planning to use them to attack a school in Brisbane's north. Federal police have confirmed the teenager has been charged with preparing or planning a terrorist act. The offence carries a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. It's understood the alleged plot was foiled before the teenager managed to obtain a weapon. New South Wales remains on alert this morning with more than 70 fires still burning right across the state. A total fire ban was in force across the Greater Sydney and Illawarra regions yesterday. Destructive winds blasted the state and are still being felt across northern New South Wales. The SES has been called out to almost 1,000 homes over the past 24 hours as winds reach more than 100 kilometres an hour. 120 inbound and outbound flights had to be cancelled, with passengers today advised to check airline schedules. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of Victorians remain without power this morning as emergency crews scramble to clean up damage from ferocious storms. Paul Dowsley is on the outskirts of Melbourne.
After the big storm comes, of course, the big clean-up. We are in Warragul, and at this park there are dozens of trees just like this one that have come down in those ferocious winds from yesterday. Thankfully, it has calmed so the clean-up can begin. In this part of Victoria, there are about 5,000 properties still without power, about 35,000 still across the state. Emergency crews are still assessing damage and responding to urgent calls. More than 500 crews are out today. At its peak yesterday, up to 185,000 electricity customers were in the dark. Some of those still affected could be without power for days. And those fierce winds that lashed the city gusted up to 141 kilometres an hour just off Sandringham, with many other places over 100 kilometres an hour, plus heavy rain and hail. Around half the state hit by these storms. More than 660 properties damaged, homes impacted, cars smashed, trampolines bouncing across backyards. The big supermarkets have been affected too. Tens of thousands of dollars worth of perishable products at the Coles in Druin have been dumped in a skip bin after that store lost power. And Telstra has fixed damage to 166 mobile phone towers, with another 43 still needing repairs to come back online. SES crews have worked through the night and, of course, through today. Currently, they still have about 400 active jobs.
One of the most experienced animal handlers at Dreamworld is continuing to recover this morning after yesterday's tiger attack on the Gold Coast. She was mauled while taking the animal on its morning walk.
Well, Melissa Reynolds is one of the most experienced handlers here at Dreamworld, and yet this morning she remains at Gold Coast University Hospital in a stable condition with an internal probe now underway here at Dreamworld. Melissa was walking one of the big cats with another handler yesterday morning before the gates opened to the general public when she was attacked. The cat leaving a bite in her arm and her shoulder. Quick thinking Dreamworld staff administered first aid until paramedics arrived. They say her injuries were quite deep, and amid fears of infection, she was rushed to hospital. Melissa is the first handler to be attacked in about 10 years, and Dreamworld is calling this a rare, isolated incident. As to exactly how this occurred, well, that will now form part of an internal investigation.
You're watching 7's Morning News live from Perth. Still to come, the Israeli Prime Minister apologetic but defiant after hostage bodies are recovered. And Joe and Kamala take to the campaign trail for the first time together.
On 7 News, spring is here and hay fever's sweeping through Perth with a vengeance. Wild winds whipping up pollen, leaving sufferers in pain. The new technology to help keep you healthy from your house to your car and handbag. How to live a hay fever-free spring this September on 7 News at 6.
Welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has spoken with the family members of 6 hostages whose bodies were recovered from Gaza, and it's been revealed he's asked them for forgiveness. Ashley Mullaney reports.
Benjamin Netanyahu was contrite, apologetic today, but he was also defiant. It has been an emotional day in Israel, farewelling one of 6 hostages shot dead in a tunnel underneath Gaza. After more than 300 days in captivity, these 6 hostages murdered by Hamas, their deaths triggering a series of protests and strikes right across Israel. Some Israelis calling for the government to do more to reach a deal with Hamas, to have 100 hostages still being held in captivity, to have them free. This is how Benjamin Netanyahu responded today.
These murderers executed 6 of our hostages. They shot them in the back of the head. That's what's changed. And now after this, we're asked to show seriousness? We're asked to make concessions? What message does this send Hamas?
US President Joe Biden was asked today whether he believes Netanyahu is doing enough to reach a deal with Hamas to have those remaining hostages free. He had a one-word answer, which was no. Meanwhile, here in the UK, the new Labour government has announced it is moving to ban the sale of some weapons to Israel. The UK is by no means a major arms dealer with Israel, but this is a significant blow to the diplomatic relationship.
For the first time, US President Joe Biden is on the campaign trail for his Vice President, Kamala Harris. The pair has appeared together in Pittsburgh as Harris courts union support for her bid to win the White House in November. Here's US correspondent Tim Lester.
In the 6 weeks since he quit as a candidate for a second presidential term, Joe Biden has stayed in the background while Democrats got behind a new candidate. A special appearance at the recent Democratic National Convention, but day to day not campaigning until today. The president telling workers in Pittsburgh selecting Kamala Harris as his vice presidential nominee 4 years ago was the best decision of his presidency.
And she has a backbone like a ramrod. And she has the moral compass of a saint. This woman knows what she's doing. Folks, I promise you, if you elect Kamala Harris as president, it'll be the best decision you will have ever made.
The joint appearance timed for America's holiday Labor Day in presidential election years traditionally seen as the point at which campaigns begin their sprint for the early November vote.
We know what it's like to be the underdog. And we are the underdog in this race.
This year, the polls are currently too tight even to suggest who's currently in front, let alone which campaign might win when America votes 64 days from now.
Australian director Peter Weir has received the coveted Golden Lion Award for Lifetime Achievement at the Venice Film Festival. 80-year-old Weir made his mark with Australian classics including Picnic at Hanging Rock and Gallipoli. A move to Hollywood saw him direct films including Dead Poets Society and The Truman Show. Stay with us here on 7 Sport with Ben Cousins is coming up right after the break, including an Eagles surprise for Perth school kids in the lead up to the AFL Grand Final. And Carlton set to welcome back a host of stars for their clash against Brisbane. You're watching Seven's Morning News. Ben Cousins joins us now. Ben, very good morning to you. What's happening in sport today?
Oh, well, good morning, Tina. An Eagles champion has surprised primary school kids this morning with an elusive bit of AFL silverware. Anna Hay was there.
Well, the Eagles and Dockers might not be playing finals in 2024, but there was still plenty of excitement in the air this morning as the Premiership Cup started its 3-day tour of WA. West Coast Eagles champion Josh Kennedy is this year's Premiership Cup ambassador and surprised kids at Glengarry Primary School with the silverware.
When you finish retire, you know that you're probably never going to hold a cup like that again. So to be able to be a part of this grand final or final series and grand final day and hold that cup, it's pretty cool.
It's the first time the Cup has toured WA since 2021 when Optus Stadium hosted the grand final.
So to have the Cup tour WA is pretty cool, and be able to get to schools, footy clubs and I suppose iconic places around the state, is amazing.
So where else will the Cup travel? I'll have those details at 4 and 6.
Carlton are weighing up whether to gamble on a host of stars in their AFL elimination final against Brisbane at the Gabba on Saturday night. As many as 8 players are pushing to return from injury, but Michael Voss is wary of making mass changes.
We're going to have to do it a little bit different, a little bit unique. There'll be some guys that are coming in really fresh, but we do have to weigh up that possibility of, how many's too many.
Charlie Curnow didn't train with the main group yesterday. Harry Mackay and Tom De Koning are among the big names who got through the session. Alex de Minaur is through to the quarterfinals of the US Open for just the second time in his career. The world number 10 won an all-Aussie 4th-round battle with childhood friend Jordan Thompson, advancing in 4 sets.
I've got so much respect for Tomo. We've grown up together. He's been like a big brother to me, so I really appreciate everything he's done for me, and he's a hell of a competitor.
De Minaur will now take on Englishman Jack Draper for a spot in the last 4. 5th seed Daniil Medvedev also booked his place in the quarters. In the women's singles, world number 1 Iga Swiatek eased into the quarters in straight sets. Alexa Leary swam an incredible anchor leg to clinch Australia's 8th gold medal of the Paris Paralympics. The 23-year-old, who had to learn to walk and talk again after suffering serious brain damage in a cycling accident in 2021, powered home to seal victory. Jessie Ongles, Timothy Hodge and Emily Beecroft were also part of the Aussie team. Earlier, Jake Mickle claimed his 2nd career silver medal in his category of the 100 metres breaststroke. Jamison Leeson became the first Aussie woman to medal in boccia, claiming silver in the women's individual event. Leeson's doubles teammate Daniel Mickle also won individual silver in the men's event. Michael Burian claimed bronze in men's javelin, and the Aussie Steelers also won bronze in men's wheelchair rugby with a 50-48 win over Great Britain. And that's all in a big morning of sport, Tina. More at 4 and 6 o'clock.
And I love those great stories coming out of the Paralympics. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ben. Stay with us. I'll have all of your weather details next on 7's Morning News. See you right after the break.
It's game on. AFLW tipping with the game. The season's top tipper wins $10,000 and bragging rights. Plus, there's a cash prize every round. It's easy to play. Sign up, tip, win. And it's totally free. So grab your mates, share your tips and get in the game.
Checking your weather details now. Currently 20 degrees in our city with a shower or 2 due to develop later in the day. Looking at the forecast for the suburbs, up to 21 degrees for Joondalup and Midland today, a top of 20 for Fremantle and 19 degrees for Mandurah and Rockingham. For the rest of the week, a few showers about tomorrow, but staying mild, a top of 20 degrees. Then some more wet weather for Thursday. Rain in the morning with the chance of some small hail later in the afternoon. Cooler too, up to 16 degrees. Possible showers on Friday and Saturday, clearing for Sunday and a top of 21 degrees. And that is 7's morning news for this Tuesday. Stay with us. We'll have the very latest updates right across the afternoon and, of course, in our main bulletins. They're at 4 and then at 6 o'clock. I'm Tina Altieri. Please enjoy the rest of your day.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want. Download